Okay, this would be the opening shot of the movie. A lot of people ask me why we don't start with a presents or film by or anything. And this was back in the day when I mistakenly thought that we'd get picked up by a Miramax or some other company, and they would put Miramax Presents, and then it would start it. So instead, we just start right away.
And that's the actual mayor.
That is, in fact, the actual mayor, P.J. Morgan, who's no longer, unfortunately, the mayor of Omaha. But there was a scripted part for the mayor, and actually the Omaha Film Commission said that they got a meeting with me and the mayor, and during the meeting they suggested that he play himself in it, and he said yeah, and I'll throw in like $5,000 of city money and $5,000 of county money too. Well, this is great. You can play whatever you want in the movie. So as it turned out, city money actually can't be spent on movies. It has to be spent on roads, bridges, and schools and things. But actually, for a while, thinking that helped us get the money to raise that helped us raise the money. Then when it came time to shoot, originally we just thought he'd be behind a desk, and then I found out that he had this motorcycle that he uses in parades and things like that. And then they said, well, what should he wear? And I said, well, wear what he regularly wears. And he shows up in this leather thing. I'm Dan Mervish, by the way. I am the director of the film, Omaha the Movie, and I am here sitting in comfy chairs in Park City, Utah, oddly enough, with my good friends Gabe Wardell.
Gabe Wardell, who's a slam dance juror and projectionist.
And Skiz Sizik, who's just a fan of this film and started working for Slam Dance and anxious to meet the guy who made it.
There you go. Both these guys have extensive experience on the festival circuit, and Skiz is a filmmaker, and Gabe is largely a festival whore.
We're gonna have to cut that out for the PG-13.
Yeah, there you go. So guys, start asking me questions about the movie. Well, you'll notice his N is backwards there. We have to flip a couple frames.
One of those tidbits you only get on the DVD.
Yeah.
Pack.
Yeah.
Interesting point. You said this got a lot of coverage in the gay and lesbian papers.
Yeah, we have one, gay character there, and that was enough to get us some good press in some of the gay magazines. Not there's anything wrong with that.
And also, tell us
about American Airlines. Oh, I have to tell this story. So we did a lot of product placement. Oh, take a look at the big red bird. And he was getting an American Airlines package. You want to know why?
Yes.
We tried to get American Airlines to give us free plane tickets because there was a fair bit of back and forth between LA and Omaha. And their passenger division, which normally does product placement for big movies like, Home Alone at the time was the big one they had just done, sort of laughed at us because we were too small of a film. But it turns out they have a separate cargo division, package division, that is very competitive with the passenger division. And they were more than happy to help us. And we said, great, because we have a shot of a plane in the film in the credits. They said, well, that's great, except if you just show the plane landing, then the passenger division gets all the credit. So we said, okay, well, what do you want us to do? They said, well, you have to show someone taking a parcel package to an American Airlines cargo package counter. And we said, all right, well, that may be a bit of a challenge to get in the movie. Fortunately, the same day, about an hour later, my Rick Endicott, who was one of the associate producers, or whatever credit we wound up giving him, but one of the key folks, had made a deal. We were trying to do similar deals with restaurants along the way, and had made a deal with the Red Robin restaurant in Omaha, and they said they would give us free food one day for the whole crew, and we said, great, and are there any catches? And they said, yeah, you have to put our mascot in the movie. We said, mascot? So, yeah, well, it's a guy in a giant red bird suit. So that's why there is a guy in the giant red bird suit giving a package to the American Airlines counter.
And wouldn't that effectively be killing two birds with one stone?
Yeah, it would. It would. Indeed. Very
Right.
So
Tell us a little bit also about your use of the credits, particularly the handwritten ones with the hand sticking in the frame. As opposed to these
subtitles?
Yes, as opposed to the professional credits, which we
Right.
see here at the opening
Well,
film.
you'll see as the movie progresses that there's a couple characters who don't speak English, and you know, I wanted some villains in the film who you know, who weren't complete stereotypes, and we'd seen drug dealers and, you know, Nazis and South Africans and Russians and Germans and whatever. So I came up with the idea of the Colombian jewel thieves, which actually is based on a real thing. There really are Colombian jewel thieves who do what is described in the movie. But I always hate it when films show people of a different origin speaking English, you know, with a silly accent. That never seems right. So I wanted a bit more realism than that. So, you know, that led me to do subtitles. Unfortunately, subtitles on independent film, if you're shooting in film, which we were, are very expensive because you have to do inter negatives and inter positives, and it's a big deal. So we thought, well, let's go the low budget route, and we had this idea of doing handwritten subtitles, and that's where those came from. And you know, in the early parts of the movie, you sort of you go with it, I think, and then I decided, well, as long as we're doing that, we may as well just really go with it. And as people see during the course of the movie, you know, there's a few interesting surprises. This Super 8 stuff here, which actually was shot largely by me, as well as the lead actress in the film, Jill Anderson, who had never shot anything in her life. One day we drove around Omaha, and I just said, Jill, point this camera out the window, and you know, made sure she rolled down the window first.
Always a very important.
Yeah, this, by the way, is Dana Altman, my producing partner. That's his wife and child walking there. So that is, for those interested, that is Robert Altman's great-grandchild making his screen debut. And he has since been in a number of other films, including, I think he was in Kansas City.
So how many of these characters on the screen were actors that you auditioned? How many of them were friends that you had?
Well, Lars, the donut guy, is actually, he's an old friend of mine from high school whose name is Lars. Now, coincidentally, I wanted a different friend of mine to play Lars in the film, but he wound up getting sick and couldn't be in the film, so I thought, well, golly, let's just get Lars to play Lars. And that seemed to work out well. But Houston Walkinshaw, who plays Simon, is an actor. That's what he does. He acts. He's originally actually from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and went to SUNY Purchase in New York, which is a great theater school. And along with a group of a number of other SUNY Purchase actors, instead of kind of going to New York and trying their way on Broadway, which a lot of them do after school, they literally just picked a spot on the map and started a theater company in Omaha called the Blue Barn Theater. And so there's a few actors, including Houston, who are in the film that are sort of part of the Blue Barn troupe, and in one way or another. But then there's people like Lars who aren't actors at all, and then there's other people who are actors. Omaha's always been a strong theater town. Marlon Brando's from there, and the whole Fonda family are from there. I actually went to the same high school as Henry Fonda, of course, not the same year. And so it's always been a very strong theater community. But this was really the first indigenous independent film that was shot in Omaha and really in Nebraska. And there had only been a few Hollywood films even before this. There was no state film commission until we made the movies.
And tell us a little bit about the zeitgeist that was going on at the time. This is when you shot this, the sort of
This is
vibe,
last millennium.
the energy. And
This is in the indie film world,
Yeah, of
such
course.
as it was. This was right after El Mariachi and Slacker, and basically was influenced to a certain extent, not so much stylistically, but just by the story of how Robert Rodriguez made El Mariachi. I thought, if this guy in Texas can make this, film for no money and no resources, and why not go to Omaha and make a movie there, which is where I'm from originally. And at the time, I was a student at USC and was getting very sort of bitter and disgruntled about not getting picked for the student projects and that sort of thing. And I had just worked on a low-budget kickboxing movie in the Philippines the year before, and I realized which was made by a bunch of lunatics. And I thought, if these guys can make a film in the Philippines where nobody spoke the same language, how tough can making a film in Omaha be? And at the time, I didn't have any particularly rich friends or connections in the industry, so I thought the only real and ethnic interestingness to myself, other than being just another white Jewish skinny kid, was to go back to Omaha. And there are a fair number of rich people there, very few of whom actually gave me money to make the movie. I have a nice handwritten note from Warren Buffett saying he wasn't going to invest in the film, but he was a real mensch. He wrote a hand note. The next, within a week I got a letter from him. And because it really hadn't been tapped, it was a great time and a great place to make a film, and really could not have done it without, there was a city/county film commission who really hadn't had too many projects in a while, so they were very bored and I think afraid of losing their own jobs. So they were incredibly instrumental. In fact, I wanted to give them producing credits, which they couldn't take, but they hooked me up with investors, with the mayor, as I said, with, if we needed a crane for a crane shot, they would, just call up Public Works Department. And they really legitimized the project. And it was really a series of being legitimized. It was, first the mayor got involved. Then when the mayor got involved, the governor heard about it. He got involved. One's a Democrat, one's a Republican. So it made it much easier to get local businesses involved. And people giving us a lot of services in kind. We never paid for a single meal of food.
Why didn't you use USC equipment if you were a film student at the time?
Yeah, USC has a funny policy of owning all the films that their students make, and for a feature that you don't want to be stuck in that situation. So there was a very little obscure used option where I had to technically change from an MA to an MFA or something like that, but it actually wound up costing me less in credits. Essentially their motto at school was, if you use even any equipment or even a pencil sharpener, they would own the rights to the film. So it worked very much to my advantage to be shooting in Omaha, and we wound up shooting in 35 millimeters, so I couldn't have used any of the equipment at school anyway, and did it completely as an independent film, and yet still got credit as my thesis film. I graduated. And that worked to our advantage, because sometimes we would sort of portray ourselves as, oh, we're a little student film and Panavision, won't you give us cameras? And other times we're like, hey, we're a bunch of professionals making a real movie, stop laughing at us. So we really played it both ways depending on what suited us. That said, the cameras from Panavision, in the end, they were going to give us the cameras, but pending availability, and it turned out they weren't available. And we just happened to mention the Altman connection, and all of a sudden 3 hours later we had cameras. So that didn't hurt. Of course, the reason we had an Altman connection also goes back to the film commission. I knew I had lived in Nebraska, but I hadn't been there for about 8 years, and had some actor friends there, but didn't really know anyone on the film community. So I knew I needed a local producer. And so they said, well, there's this guy Dana, and he's produced a couple commercials and things like that, and he's interested in getting into features. And I said, well, yeah, that sounds nice. I'll meet him. They said, oh, by the way, he's Robert Altman's grandson. So, that was kind of cool, because I actually coincidentally had a poster of MASH over my desk while I was writing the script. So I've always been a big fan of his. And he and Robert, who we could call Bob, that's always cool. He was very helpful to us in a lot of sort of odd ways, just to be able to call him when we got in trouble and just get his advice, or get his reassurance, you know.
I really gotta go.
Was very,
You just got here.
Yeah,
was
I
very
know.
instrumental
We'll talk, I
at
promise.
sort of individual points during the production,
Call
and
sometime.
you know, it certainly didn't hurt our credibility as we were trying to make the film. But we really didn't drop his name that much. So the guy on the left in the coffee shop, he's really, you know, the guy who runs that coffee shop for the last 30 years. It's a real Omaha institution, the Antiquarium. And the guy on the right is one of my investors, who actually flew in from Chicago. He's an old friend of mine from college, to be in the film. So a lot of the investors wound up getting in the film one way or another. And you know, when you make an independent film, you do, you know, they should be called dependent films because you're dependent on investors and restaurants and everybody to give you things. So it's you have to rely on these things. And if they say, "Well, can my wife be in the film?" You go, "Yes, she can." You know, and as long as it doesn't, you know, and especially with a film like this, it's kind of a silly comedy where kind of anything can happen. You're like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, we'll stick a big giant red bird in the airport.
So how much of what you did during the course of the production was sort of off the cuff and improvised based on what you had available, and how much of it was strictly with the script?
Well, it was all very much location based. I mean, I think that's kind of the key to doing these kinds of films is you find the locations and you work with them. And in fact, the very sort of genesis of the film was a friend of mine, Phil Berman, who's in a band called Benzona, which does some of the music work on here. And we shot a couple little music videos. He said, "Why don't we shoot a music video at this place called Carhenge?" I said, "What's that?" And it's this place out in western Nebraska, and no one had ever shot anything. And when he told me about it, when I looked into it, I said, "Well, this is too good to waste on a music video. Let's shoot a feature." And so I knew that the film, I sort of was inspired by Hitchcock, who always ended his films with these big national monuments, like Mount Rushmore or whatever. So, and this is the closest thing Nebraska has to a big monument. So I thought, well, we'll end the film there, and of course, I know I can stay at my parents' house in Omaha, and I have some friends there. So we'll start the film in Omaha. So then it was just a matter of coming up with a plot to get from point A to point B, literally, which is 400 miles away. Over the course of the production, we actually put on 1,600 crew miles because we had to go back there twice because of a certain problem we had with the negative in the lab. But I mean, it wasn't insurance fraud. That's an ugly word.
You've been warned.
Yeah. So, but with all the locations, we would have to adjust. I think accordingly. The house that they're in was tough to find, but a woman had just died like the week before, and so there was this house that was still furnished, and that was handy.
Yes.
Except for her. And Jill, who you see here in the haircutting scene here, she's an old friend of mine from high school who was very active in theater in high school and continues to be really the biggest actress in Nebraska and professionally. So it was great to have her involved, and she really helped. She was very instrumental in a lot of other ways with the casting and sort of in the early stages, getting involved. And she also used to cut my hair in high school, so I think that's kind of where this scene came from. It wasn't exactly like this, but my recollections were a little fuzzy. Yeah, this was a fun scene to shoot. Except that this was the one day, or actually the 2 days, that we had a real movie dolly. It's moving in there. The dolly weighed 400 pounds. It took 10 people to carry in shifts of 5. And this location, which was a great location, a warehouse in downtown Omaha, was terrific, except that it was on the 6th floor and the elevator didn't work. So the crew was not so crazy about carrying the dolly that day. There's lots of blue gel there on the lights.
What made you decide to call the film Omaha the movie?
Well, it was kind of a working title to get investors. The whole pitch I made to local investors was, hey, we're going to make a local indigenous film with local actors and local music, and and I'm a local boy, and because people in cities like Omaha, or to take real pride in the community. So, the football team and things like that. So, so it was originally just going to be a working title, until we came up with something better. And then as I sort of went into post-production with it, and which we did in LA, and started, and talking to more people kind of in the business back in LA, every time I said the name of the film was Omaha, they would start laughing. And I thought, well, it's a comedy, that's not so bad. So, people in Lincoln, Nebraska get a little upset that I didn't call it, Nebraska the movie, and they get a bit offended. And people in Des Moines, who see it, they're a little put off by the, Nebraska centricness of it. This scene, actually, the the photography scene was actually shot in Iowa. It's one scene we shot in Iowa, and just outside of Council Bluffs. And this was actually one of the scenes that we really encouraged a lot of improvisation with the actors who play the family, and really sort of put aside the normal rules about overlapping dialogue and getting safe sound, and it was a lot of fun to do, and I think some of the best lines that come out of it came sort of on the spur of the moment, like the line about he still eats chicken is just sort of came on the spot as we were working through it.
Perhaps a little bit more of the Altman influence.
Yeah, I had to be conscious not to be too sort of Altman-esque. That would have been too on the nose. So, but also we were very limited in what we had from Panavision. We only had, I think, in the end, 2 lenses that worked, and they gave us 2 cameras, and they were great. They were terrific working with, because one of the cameras would always be broken, but they would always fix it and send us a replacement camera. And sometimes the replacement ones were really sweet, but we were pretty limited in sort of our use of lenses for whatever reason. And there's the pepper. So, but I sort of tried to do something kind of different in every scene aesthetically, and the blue scene and the yellow scene, and because I thought, you may as well. We don't know what's going to happen with this film. If nothing else, it'll be a reel, and we may as well just have fun with it. And it's got some kind of fuzzy rules about what's real life in this, so anything can kind of go. The emeralds, for those who are curious, are actually green rock candy. That's why he could put them in his mouth.
What the hell are you doing here?
This is vaguely inspired by a trip I took through Africa a while ago, and actually did smuggle emeralds from Zimbabwe. I don't think they were worth very much, but it was just kind of fun smuggling emeralds through 30 countries. And
See you too.
Sorry, Buddhist
ask me some more questions. Skiz, when did you first see the film?
Why did I first see it?
No, when?
When did I first see it?
When? Why?
Oh,
When?
geez, I guess it was, I don't know, when did it come out on video? 1996?
Gina, please, I'm busy.
For the people seeing this DVD, this is the first time it's coming out on video, and that's what counts, Skiz.
All right. Well, I worked at a video store, and there was a copy of it, and I took it home and watched it because I like to see what people like myself were making, meaning people that weren't super well connected and rich.
People who work in video stores?
And worked in video stores. And
nothing ever changed.
I just thought there were some real moments of brilliance, and I really enjoyed it. And then, when the Slamdance Film Festival came along and had the opportunity to come out here and meet you, I was like, hey, you're the guy that made that movie I really liked. And,
Ancient Buddhist.
And our relationship has been downhill ever since.
yeah, ever since.
Yeah, I really never did
So we,
live up to that
we brought
image.
brought you to Baltimore to show it.
Yeah, as a retrospective screening, which was nice.
I guess you could probably point. I know you started to get to it earlier that at the time there weren't as many films like this being made, and there certainly weren't as many outlets for films like this to be seen.
No, this is before the Sundance Channel, before Independent Film Channel. At the time we made it, there was really, if you made an independent film, there was really one route to getting it seen, and that was to get into Sundance. And we didn't. I mean, we had distributors flat out tell us, you know, we love the film, and if you get into Sundance, we'll pick it up. Otherwise, you know, good luck in your career working at a video store or whatever. So, so that's kind of how we started Slam Dance, is a group of us who had met at this thing called the Independent Feature Film Market in New York,
Simon's great uncle.
who all had films. We all thought we'd get into Sundance. None of us did. And we had heard of a couple filmmakers the year before, kind of individually doing renegade screenings in Park City, which is where Sundance is. And as it would turn out, one of those teams of films would be made by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the South Park guys. But anyway, but the next year, so we basically came up with the idea. Well, why not take that idea of showing renegade films, but do it as a collective? And we wound up getting 12 features and 12 shorts the first year, which was '95, and show up in Park City on the, you know, across the street from Sundance, because that's where Hollywood goes, that's where the New York indie film world goes, that's where the press goes, that's where international people go. And it came along at a good time, because it was really, there was starting to be a real explosion in independent film, and Sundance and the institutions surrounding Sundance, like the Miramaxes and the Fine Lines, were really starting to grow and take themselves more seriously. And Sundance was showing films by second-time directors and bigger budget films with bigger names. And so, but there was still this growing group of people like me who were, you know, just coming up, who had no connections and first-timers, and there was no place for us to go. And so we sort of, Slam Dance kind of stumbled into this niche and has grown exponentially since then. Not more, go to slamdance.com on your website. We just came along at a good time. Of course, I still didn't get distribution out of it.
So,
and the film wound up playing at like 32 other festivals too.
right. We'll talk a little bit about the value of film festivals and what showing a film like this at a film festival.
Well, the value of a film festival is you can have people see the film and not get paid for it. That's the upside. But no, I mean, it's great exposure. I mean, the film played in 10 or 11 European festivals, and you know, the only award it won was actually at a festival in Nebraska, oddly enough. By the way, the sheriff, you can hopefully see he has a man in an electric chair, I think right behind his desk. He actually ad-libbed a fair number of his lines, which was, I mean, he's a real sort of classic figure. And then of course the roving gang of Iowa kickboxers coming up. I had previously worked for a senator from Iowa, so I had and you can actually see one of the Iowa kickboxers wearing a Harkin for Senate shirt, I think.
Did the kickboxing come inspired from your experience working in Southeast Asia on the kickboxing?
Exactly. That was my homage to my cinematic history, which was American Kickboxer 2.
You had learned a little bit about how to shoot a kickboxing scene.
I had, yeah, and I realized there wasn't much to it. We had originally a fight choreographer, and for whatever reason he didn't show up, or it didn't work out that well, or he was taking it too seriously, and we, you know, just me and the actors, we just came up with these fight scenes by ourselves, and you know, had a lot more fun, and you know, probably got injured more. But
so if anybody out there is looking to maybe finance a kickboxing movie, or looking for maybe their perfect kickboxing man, you would come pretty highly recommended.
Yeah. Finding actors to play the Colombians was a bit of a trick, because I wanted, for authenticity, to get Latino actors. Unfortunately, there aren't too many in Nebraska. There were a couple, but they were either too old for the part, or they weren't available. So I found two actors, both of whom told me they spoke Spanish fluently. As it turned out, neither of them spoke much Spanish, if any at all. Fortunately, we found a Spanish professor to translate the script, and so they speak very bad Spanish, which hopefully, you know, works to a certain extent, but it's a challenge.
So tell us more about playing at various festivals. what the exposure did and sort of the ride this film went on, and one of its ultimate destinations.
Yeah, well, it played the festival circuit for well over a year and a half. It's sort of if you play the festival circuit long enough, eventually you wind up on the retrospective circuit, which is kind of where it's at now. And that can last well after you're dead too, which is the nice thing. But we did that, and that was fun. And then along the way, as we were playing the festival circuit, we needed to get an extra print, and we had posters made by a graphic design company in Omaha. We had those for free, and we were starting to work on a trailer. We realized we had all these elements we needed to self-distribute the film. So we said, well, why don't we just start doing that? And we actually tried to do the what we call the Federal Hill strategy. And Michael Carney had this film Federal Hill that he played in Rhode Island, right? And it did so well there that a bigger company picked it up. And Linkletter had done the same thing with Slacker in Texas. So we thought, well, let's just start playing it in Omaha, in Nebraska. And we had a good relationship with some of the theater companies there from having done dailies and getting a lot of good local press. So we booked it in big multiplexes in Omaha and Lincoln and throughout Nebraska, and it did do very well. And we would call up the distributors and say, "See, it did do very well." And instead of picking us up, they said, "Oh, well, great, you just blew your biggest audience." So now we're even less inclined to pick you up.
It was a little bit of a catch-22 there when it came to self-distribution.
Yeah, exactly. But but frankly, distributors look for any excuse to say no, whether whatever it is. So we just kept plugging away, and from Omaha and Lincoln, we played Des Moines and Cedar Rapids and Rapid City, South Dakota, and to small towns like Alliance, which is where Carhenge was, to Sidney, Nebraska, to to playing art houses in Kansas City and St. Louis and Austin, Atlanta, and it just kept growing, and eventually wound up in we finished the run in LA with an 11-week run, and which did great.
A lot of people,
and there was about 35 cities altogether.
Sure. A lot of people don't understand when it comes to releasing a film, distributing a film, what some of the costs associated with that are, and they assume that anything that's out there can, if it finds an audience, will make money and will be desirable to a distributor. But you found that by doing it yourself, you ran into certain things that made it cost prohibitive and certain issues. What are some of the main maybe words of wisdom you could give to somebody about self-distribution?
Don't. No, it's a lot of fun. It's not particularly profitable. I mean, the self-distribution essentially broke even. It was a self-perpetuating thing. The money we made in one city paid for the extra print we needed in the next city. It paid for my phone bill, that kind of thing. Which, frankly, is no better or worse than most of the studios. I mean, the studios don't particularly make money off of the theatrical release. They make money off the video release, the foreign
DVD.
sales. The DVD, yeah. And so our experience was really not that different from the big studios. I actually, in the middle of the process, had to get a temp job at Buena Vista at Disney Distribution. Found out that they got screwed by the same Iowa City theater that we got screwed by. So I didn't feel too bad about that. And I have to say that I have to give thanks to the guys who did Brothers Keeper, Bruce Sinofsky and the other fella. I'd met them. Bruce was a juror at the Florida Film Festival, and really inspired a lot of the other filmmakers who had films there to self-distribute their films. Because at the time, that was the biggest self-distribution success story. And he even gave me his secret list of theaters and exhibitors, which I've since passed on to countless other people. But so that was handy. Using his experience. But that car on my left, by the way, was my own lowrider truck, which I since had to get rid of. But now, Skids, you like Bob?
Yeah, that scene that we just got through is probably my favorite gag in the whole film. The musical performance art Sandy Duncan Wheat Thins commercial.
Right.
I remember the first time I saw that, I just thought, oh, I wish I'd have thought of that.
Yeah,
I
well,
gotta meet this guy.
Yeah, well, I wish I had too. Actually, it's the guy, Bob Garfield, is another friend from high school who really did play bass and really had that Sandy Duncan song that he used to play, and I like always kind of had that in my head. And so when it came time for the movie, and I needed this, sort of sage man who would give him these nuggets of wisdom and warning about the Colombians, an oracle of sorts, I said, well, let's get Bob and have him play the Sandy Duncan thing. And the stockyards, were getting ready to close, and they have since completely closed down. And we were lucky to get any cattle there at all. But it was great working with that many cattle because they take direction pretty well. If you run past them, they all turn their head, which is pretty good. So, but it was fun because I think originally the stockyards, I think another location had fallen through, and we said, hey, can we shoot at the stockyards? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
It's like what Hitchcock always said about actors, right? Essentially, that you can tell them where to go and they'll follow your direction.
Exactly. This is one of the little bird references in the movie. There's a few little
More Hitchcock thrown in
bird
right there.
things.
Totally. Do you have a cameo in the film, by the way, a la Hitchcock, or is it just your
yes.
truck?
When we get to the cameo, I will tell you about it.
I wanted to
One of
set
my
you
other
up.
favorite
Yeah.
gags.
What?
One of my other favorite gags, I think, is your cameo.
Yeah. Oh, this is the day we got the crane from the city, and this was fun.
And this is one of the reasons why, again, the budget of this film. Now, what did you have? Sort of a reported budget to get the film in the cam.
To get the film shot and into about a week of editing, we had $38,000. We'd actually set it up as a limited partnership, and technically we needed $40,000 to break escrow, and I think we borrowed $40,000 from someone and paid it back immediately just so we could have the excuse to break escrow and start the production. And then all through post-production, we were constantly raising money. So we would cut a trailer, and then Dana would show it in Omaha and try to raise some money from previous investors or new people. We did a screening in Omaha and raised money based on that. And in the end, despite the fact that there are actually a lot of rich people in Omaha, most of the investors wound up being friends, family of friends, crew members, cast members. I actually had cast members paying me, to invest in the film. And what was nice was people, the whole cast and crew really believed in the project, and we all had a stake in it, literally or figuratively, and which was a really nice experience. We actually got along really well and had a good time. And, Jill would bring her guitar on the trip out to Carhenge and just kind of entertain people. I think actually this day was about the middle of the shoot. I had to give a bit of a pep talk, but and it was a long shoot. It was 4.5 weeks. And it was a reasonably big crew. It was 20, 25 people, but it was not a. And 35 millimeter cameras. It was not one of these let's shoot it in 11 days on DV kind of things. It was a big production. Oh, there's the cattle. It really stinks in the stockyards, but oddly enough, the actors loved rolling around in the crap there, and you kind of get used to the smell after a while. We actually had a good time because it's just there's so many great places to run around and have skateboarders. Which was there was a brother of a friend of mine who I wanted to have in the movie, who I knew was a good skateboarder, but I think he was in jail at the time, so we wound up rustling up some of his friends. And,
So tell us who did the catering for the movie when you were shooting. You said you got a lot of food from
A lot of-
restaurants.
yeah.
What about I heard
Free
there was
food.
a story with the cookies.
yes, my mother made cookies for the cast and crew almost every day, which was great.
So that's a little extra bonus.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
if you're shooting in.
Yeah. Now, I had worked as a telemarketer for, I'd actually outlasted the citywide average of 3 weeks. No, I had outlasted the citywide average of 2 weeks. I think I'd worked for 3 weeks once. But Omaha really is a center of telemarketing. In fact, I tried to get this one guy as an investor. Every extra in this scene is wearing a T-shirt from one of our, donors or sponsors or restaurants, every single one. I'd actually tried to get the king of Omaha telemarketing to invest in the film, and had sent him this scene, and he invited me into his office. Instead of just saying anything on the phone, he had me come into his office and sort of say, "Kid, this makes telemarketing look bad. Telemarketing is a wonderful thing. You should make it look good." And gave me this long lecture, and I think used some of his little speech to me in the dialogue, and it was just so absurd. He didn't give me any money, needless to say.
Do you have his phone number? Because you can give that out to lots of people.
Yeah.
You can call him up,
Yeah.
say between 5 and 7 each night, and ask him if you'd like to.
Exactly. The actor who plays the telemarketing instructor, Tim Sergusa, did a lot of it. He, like everyone else in Omaha, had been working, I think at the time was working as a telemarketer. So a lot of this was his improv. And when he first came into audition, I think did like a 30-minute improv bit of this guy, and so we incorporated that into it.
And of course, Big Brother will be listening.
And Tim's a guy that I've worked with on some other projects since. He's a real talented guy. Oddly enough, this was the one day that the sound guy complained and cut the take because a phone rang in the distance. I'm like,
Opportunity. That's what it's all about.
of all the scenes,
2
you
days
know,
training,
it's probably
you're
okay
on
if
the
a phone
floor.
rings.
5 days probation. Boom.
Um,
We're up to full pay with
so,
commissions. And from
yeah,
then on,
there you go. There's telemarketing in Omaha.
Made
Oddly
some
enough,
phone-
the phones don't have cords.
Yeah, I was noticing that.
Yeah, this actually I think was their training room. There you go. There's a cord.
Miss Johnson?
And a lot of people think, oh, telemarketing must be all done on computer monitors, but certainly in Omaha at the time, a lot of it really was done in these kind of boiler room things.
When you worked as a telemarketer, what sorts of things were you trying to sell?
I sold the Disney Channel.
I did that too.
There you go.
I worked for a credit card telemarketing company, so it gives everybody out there a little idea about
You can hope, you can dream, you can
Sure. And someday
sell things over the phone.
you can make a movie
Yeah.
just like Dan Mervish.
I
Right.
sold call waiting too for
Sticking limbs
the
in
phone company.
garbage
People would say,
disposal
"How'd you get my
and
number?"
just
And I
plain
have to say,
getting
"Well,
into
with the
dangerous
phone
mischief
company,
with
we're the
kitchen
ones who gave it to you."
appliances.
There's always an adventure.
Yeah.
Well,
I will say, I think
you know, that's even
telemarketing
better.
it can be
After
a
all,
very
why
wonderful
spread out
thing, but
all the
also
benefits
clearly
when you
a
have it
very
all to
annoying
yourself?
thing. And
And
I think
hey,
that's
can
what
a
you're getting
rusty
at in
old
this scene,
toaster
isn't
know
it?
that a stray finger doesn't belong
Sure,
to a
that's it.
child? No.
Yeah, for anyone who's been in Omaha,
Protection.
you
So
know that
for
this
just
is
low monthly
this
installments
defines
of
the city right
$12.99,
here.
you'll never
And one
have
of
to
the
worry
kind of
about
ongoing
appliances
battles
again.
was, or discussions was, are we too Omaha centric? Are there too many in jokes? Will anyone outside of Nebraska get it? And our very first screening was at the Independent Feature Film Market, which was in the heart of New York, and people got it, and I knew that we were onto something there. Of course, distributors still would use that as an excuse not to pick up the film, but and then overseas people got it, in Germany, France, wherever. So, I think everyone comes from a city that has their quirks, and so you relate it back to your own experience from whatever city. I mean, you guys are from Baltimore.
Sure.
How did
Sometimes-
you relate to it?
Yeah. Well, sometimes the specific, the more specific, the more personal something is, the more universal its appeal, because it's true and it's authentic. And one of the things about
You've
this,
worked as a film critic, haven't you?
hey, you've noticed. But one of the things I would say about this film is it reveals a very quirky nature, but it also is a very, I say, personal film. And you touched on the fact that you thought it had autobiographical touches, and flourishes to it. So very, very clearly, it's something that was near and dear to your heart. But you took certain issues and concepts and ideas and fictionalized them and made them accessible to a broad audience.
There you go. We tried to dress the set, the everyone in the family and in the living room as in gray. So we draped gray sheets over. We were trying to do a lot with color scheme, and basically it comes down to, in the end, I wanted it to be team colors. The good guys wear red, the bad guys wear green, because I knew that the sky would either be blue or gray, and the car Hendra's gray. So sort of working back color-wise, Gina or Jill always wears red or black or white. Also, I knew Jill looked good in those colors, so I knew that would work. And the Colombians are always wearing green. And then I wanted the family to wear gray. And, there's not a lot of significance other than that. I knew, team colors. It makes people keep track of people easier.
Even at an unconscious level. But this is the
Yeah,
sort of detail that you don't necessarily.
It is, but it sort of builds to the point that I think at the end people go, oh wow, that's like good cinematography. Well, it's kind of planned that way, to have
Maybe they spoke Spanish. I don't know.
Gina and Simon in red, and and the sky be blue. It's like,
Sure.
yeah.
Gina,
No,
it wasn't an accident.
Was most of your crew people you knew from college and from USC, or did you
There
mix
were
it up?
a couple people from USC who came out to Omaha, the sound guy and Ophir and Adam Hyman, the assistant director. They were both pals from SC. We took time out to come out there. Everyone else was local in Omaha. There were actually more people that were friends of mine from high school that worked on this than from film school, certainly. Because so many people who went to high school in Omaha were still in Omaha, so they weren't really doing much. So I put them to work. But it was great, sort of reconnecting with a lot of old friends, making the film. It was a lot of fun that way. Everyone from Susan who did stills to Chris who was a production designer. We're all friends. Some of them go back to junior high with me. This next scene was at the zoo, which Omaha has a really cool zoo and has the largest indoor rainforest in the world, I think. And actually, almost some of these shots exactly appear in Election. There's Alex Payne shoots some scenes in the same place. Of course, I should say that he's also from Omaha, and we actually kind of go way back. And when he was doing his first film, Citizen Ruth, which was a couple of years after this, they were trying to decide between shooting it in Austin, shooting it in Omaha. And based on the experience that we had with our crew and our cast locally, they decided, and his producers let him shoot it in Omaha. And since then, he's been going back and making bigger and bigger films. I try to always, get Alexander to admit that we're the cusp of new Husker cinema, but then he stopped returning my calls, so. I don't think he quite liked it. It's a little bit with the announcer, this guy Michael Scott, who used to be a local anchor in Omaha, and I think now went back to it. But at the time we were making the film, was a big celebrity in Omaha because he had just gotten a job working as a correspondent on Entertainment Tonight. And so we actually shot those segments on the set of Entertainment Tonight in LA. And because we wound up getting free editorial facilities on the Paramount lot. This is where it paid to pretend to be a student film, because they said you can use all the upright moviolas you want, which for those who don't know is literally 1930 technology, which they had kind of collecting dust. This was kind of right about the time when people were just starting to edit on Avids and other digital equipment. We actually had a chance. We could have done it that way, but that would have cost us more. But when this Paramount opportunity showed up to cut the film at Paramount with my editor Larry and the first editor Alex, who got rid of. But she's actually the one who secured us the place, and it was great using these old upright moviolas to cut. But we figured, well, that's where Entertainment Tonight shot. How tough can that be? But we show up and they said, well, it's a union lot. That's going to be a bit of a trouble. So
You just got back. Why do you get to go? Dad?
that's one boring story.
Oh, because you were just a small little.
Yeah, but
film.
we wound up sneaking in, and actually the union guys were really cool, so they helped us turn the lights on. That kind of thing.
You can't get a job. And this is what you're doing. You're running away.
It seems like you had a really good experience shooting in Omaha, and you had plans to shoot a second feature that perhaps fell through, but
So far.
Yeah,
So
so
far,
far.
fallen through.
Still in the works though.
Yeah, hopefully by the
visit-
time people see this.
Right. And what's the website?
By the way, for more information on Omaha the movie, you can go to www.slamdance.com/Mirvish. That's Mirvish, and you can once you get there, you can find out more information about Omaha the movie, as well as some of the other more recent projects I've been working on. I think the thing Gabe was alluding to is this project called Stamp and Deliver, a modern-day postal western. Because what happens is as soon as you finish a movie like Omaha, you're so embroiled in making the film. It takes a long time, over a year in my case, which in retrospect is actually quite short. The first festival you go to, the first question people say is, "What else you got?" Or "What are you doing next?" And so you have to sort of come up on the spot with postal western. And the next thing you know, you're writing a postal western, and you spend 7 years trying to get that made, which hasn't happened.
Right in the middle of that, Kevin Costner released The Postman, and it just did it in.
Yeah. Now this car at some point doesn't have a rear license plate. We got it from a dealership, and then we figured that out. We put it on, but the whole reason for shooting it in station wagons and having a station wagon car chase is completely practical. We had to have room for the two actors in both cars, the cameraman, the sound guy, and myself. So in all these car shots that you'll see in the next few scenes, we are all scrunched up in the back, and that's the downside of shooting 35mm is it's a big camera. So it was very constraining to be in the back of those cars, and and frankly we were nervous that it wasn't going to be visually that interesting. But it's a real pain to the big Hollywood movies have these big elaborate camera cars and trailers that that pull the car. And we just didn't have the time or money to deal with that, or much less window mounts. Every one of these little tiny clips that are in these Super 8 segments, almost every one of them has a reference to a company that gave us free food along the way, or free gas. I mean, we worked out this trip all the way across Nebraska with free gas, free hotel, free everything. One problem with shooting in the Platte River was it happened to be an incredibly full Platte River that year. Usually you can walk across it, but it had been recent flooding. That was a problem. It was great having Mr. Abbott, the head of the Department of Roads, in the film, because he also runs the highway patrol, basically. So he told us, "Oh, well, you can shoot on this road, and you can shoot on that road," and we had complete carte blanche, across the state, and that was that was great to have that and never worry about I mean, if you're shooting in LA or any place else, you have to pay for police permits. Here, the cops are like, "Hey, what can we do for you? How can we be in the film?" So that was a nice change. There's our quick homage to the Nebraska football team. At one point, we considered trying to get Tom Osborne, who at the time was coach of the Huskers, in the film. We knew it would be too much of a pain. But there's a few references to the team in there.
Quite a good team.
Yeah,
Continue to be a good team.
Yeah, they continue to be a good team.
They didn't quite pull it out the
yeah,
win in
the
2002
recent thing.
Rose Bowl, but what are you going to do? Huh?
Yeah.
That was our little sports reference.
Sports reference for the sports minded.
For the DVD.
It's always a quarter to
Did you, when you wrote the script, and this being your first feature, did you take a lot of the technical considerations into account when you were writing it, or did you sort of write the script and then when it came time to shoot it, go, "Holy cow, I can't believe I wrote a car chase, now what am I going to do?"
Actually, a friend of mine gave me some good advice, which was, he said, write it large. You can always cut back, and you never know. You never know what you can do. You may get the money, you may get the actor, you may get the prop or whatever. I said, I think that was really good advice, because there were a lot of things that I put in that I didn't think we would ever get. Actually, at one point we could have even had aerial helicopter shots. Dana knew a helicopter pilot, but we thought we didn't have time to do it, or something. We thought it would be distracting. Yeah, and that was, and frankly, the nice thing about shooting in a place like Nebraska, which hasn't been shot to death, and where people are very friendly to film crews still, is you can take advantage of big scenes. You can get extras. You can get, you know,
Over at that truck stop. I'm getting
97 cattle and 8 cowboys on horseback to ride past, which you'll see soon.
Do I remember correctly that you once told me that you made sure every clock in the movie had the same time on it?
Yes, every
Even in the
clock,
airport?
even in the airport at the very, good point, yeah, because I think they just talked about the quarter to 12 thing.
Right.
Every clock, and I told this to the script supervisor and the production designers at the very beginning of the movie, I said, even if I'm not paying attention, make sure every clock in the movie says a quarter to 12. And sure enough, every clock in the movie says a quarter to 12. Which was particularly interesting in the airport scenes because we were shooting there in the middle of the night. It was like 3 in the morning or something. And we said to them, the airport people, oh, you know, there's one clock, one digital clock there. Can we change that to 11:45? And they said, well, you know, that if you change you can't just change that one clock. It changes the time in every single clock in the entire airport system. And we're like, oh, well, you know, that's a shame, but we certainly don't want our planes to crash. And they're like, oh, no, but we can do that. So, you know, post September 11th, I can't imagine getting away with that.
Can't imagine you being allowed to shoot in an airport.
Yeah, much less on the tarmac or, you know, in the various places. This is my cameo. Wait, is this, yeah, that was, no, that wasn't my cameo. Coming up soon. The thing about having the subtitle guy in the car is that meant there was less room in the car. Because usually in these car scenes, I was crunched in the back seat. Or, you know, or the DP would be in the back seat and I'd be in the way back. So, for some of these scenes, we had the actor who played the translator guy at the end of the movie be the translator guy. But for most of these scenes in the car, it's actually my hands. I think that wasn't my hand. No, that's not me. Because the only way we could fit all of us in was to have me do the subtitles. Because we didn't have, you know, any kind of fancy, you know, wireless sound where I could listen or a monitor where I could see what was going on. So the only way for me to be in the car was for me to be the translator guy. So, and we would just, what was nice, and over the course of the movie there were about 4 of us that wound up holding the cards. And we just held on to that one overshirt, you know, that one flannel shirt, and just that was, whoever was the translator guy would wear the shirt.
You actually have a line, though.
And then I'm gonna ride shotgun.
What?
No? Do I?
Easy lunches make
thought
me
you did.
vomit when I drive.
No, it's just my hands. It's the hand of the unseen hand of the director.
Or the scene.
The seen hand of the director.
Now you've mentioned already you got so many pro bono gifts during the course of this film. What would you imagine the budget would be had you paid for everything you were given,
Including the crew. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
including the crew.
nobody got paid.
and the cranes and the
All
the technical? I mean, you're talking
it would probably be
$500 million maybe.
at least that much, if not more. No, it would probably be on the neighborhood of the 500,000 or 600,000 or 700,000. I mean, if you're paying SAG, none of these actors are union actors, or at least that's what we told the union. That, you know, it was just yeah. So you don't have to deal with all the union issues and minimum, you know, requirements or, you know, minimum wage. I suppose there are federal laws about that, but we didn't really get into that. This is another one of my investors, the jewelry store owner, and who was an investor.
What about the costumes for the feds guys? Those jackets and everything. Where did that?
We made those. We had our production design team made them. You know, one of the challenges, which was kind of fun, was one of the great things that the City County Film Commission did for us. One of the, you know, most tangible things they did was they got us office space during the pre-production, the production of the whole film, actually at Exarban, the racetrack, which was at the time was largely decommissioned as a racetrack, but was owned by the county. and so we were in this old race office, and while we were there doing pre-production, a guy came in. He said, "Hey, I'm the guy who runs all the video on all the races. I'd love to help you out." So we said, "Okay, come up with a Feds theme, at the title sequence." So while we were shooting while we were still in pre-production, he kind of came up with that, and that allowed us to shoot off the screen and off the video. The governor, originally there was no scripted part for the governor, and then when he found out that the mayor was in the movie, he called us up and said, or his press people, and said, "Hey, can the governor be in the movie?" And we're like, "Sure, we'll write that in." And when we were about to shoot it, his press secretary said, "Is this gonna make him look silly?" I'm like, "Yeah,
I guess so.
yeah." But she's like, "Oh, okay." So, but and it turns out the governor, I think, liked the movie, and actually is now a U.S. senator. Oddly enough, the other U.S. and he's a Democrat. Oddly enough, the other U.S. senator from Nebraska, Chuck Hagel, was one of our biggest investors in the film, which was actually before he was into politics. So,
in a way, this film built bridges and had a potent political force in the future of not only Omaha, not only the future of Omaha, but a future of Nebraska and of these here United States.
It really did. And in fact, the other Senate connection was while I was in pre-production, I went to a rally or a meeting in Council Bluffs for Tom Harkin, and just kind of wanted to see him, tell him what I was up to, and because I'd worked for him a couple of years before. He said, "Wow, you're making a movie? Oh, can I invest?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, Tom." I think his wife wisely put the kibosh on that, and much to her credit, since none of the investors have gotten their money back yet. But yeah, we'll see what happens here. That is Dana Altman's cameo. He's the guy on the right in the big hat.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that was you.
No. The guy to the left of him has since directed a film which I think got rejected from Slamdance. As have a lot of films.
Well, since we're here at Slamdance talking about
we're sitting in a condo in Park City.
Just to set the mood yet again, it's snowing outside, and it is here at the high altitude in Park City, Utah. But talk a little bit more about what inspired. I know you talked a little earlier about the IFFM and being rejected, but really, what is Slamdance about? And as a filmmaker, which is obviously your first passion, you want to make movies, but you've devoted a lot of your time and energy over the last 7-8 years.
I've sacrificed my career for the service of others, Gabe. Those are my hands there. The yes, no. Those are definitely my hands. I mean, Slamdance our focus has really been on the first-time directors, and we've, there's a lot of directors we've helped over the years, like Christopher Nolan, and Mark Forster. These guys are going to be getting Oscar nominations probably this year, and it's been a great way for me to sort of stay in the industry and stay exposed to other filmmakers without actually having to make another film, which is nice, I guess. I can. What's frustrating over the years is that now people refer to me, "Oh, you're that Slamdance guy." And, "Have you ever made a film?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Here's the evidence.
Yeah, and that's problematic, and that's why it's important to sort of get back in the saddle and to stay active, even if it's doing small films or shorts or TV work or any work really, or watching TV. That clock says 11:45.
There you go.
I used to, by the way, for the record, I used to work in a donut shop at Dippy Donuts in Omaha. I was a donut head there. I didn't write poetry while I was there, and cops really did come in. I mean, it's a cliche. I mean, there's lots of cliches in here, but hopefully they're we tried to do slightly different things with them.
Now tell me the
All right,
there's an irony of ironies, which is your film was rejected by the Sundance Film Festival.
Yes.
Inspired you essentially to launch the Renegade Slam Dance Festival, which has since gone on to national and international prominence. in its own right.
Yeah, the E Channel rated Slam Dance the number 7 biggest festival in the world.
And Film Thread and Chris Gore's Ultimate Film Festival Guide listed it. And yet, ultimately, when it comes time for Omaha, the movie, to make its television debut,
curiously enough,
yes,
it was on the Sundance Channel.
And
And it was the first Slam Dance film picked up by the Sundance Channel, which at the time was just kind of starting out. And yeah, that was very strange. In fact, the premiere on the Sundance Channel kind of timed out to be the same week as the premiere of the theatrical film in LA. And oddly enough, I hooked up with the publicist for, here's those cattle I was talking about, the publicist for the Sundance Channel, and we put out a joint press release and joint press kit, and on one sleeve of the press kit on the left side was, my picture of me and my actors and my press kit, and on the other side was the Sundance Channel press kit and a big 8x10 glossy of Robert Redford. So that was kind of ironic, since by that point I think he'd already called us parasites, which, we are. Oddly enough, about a month or 2 months before shooting the film, Jill, the lead actress, and I and a couple other people were having dinner in downtown Omaha. And who do we see at the next table over? But Robert Redford. His son was in town getting a liver transplant or something. And oddly enough, he was very intent on signing autographs for random people coming through, because people knew he was in town. But when I actually went up and talked to him and said, "Hey, I'm a filmmaker, and I didn't want to bother you during dinner, but this is after dinner. And I'm making this film in Omaha. Do you have any advice?" And he was not particularly outgoing. I think he just thought I was just some kid trying to get into Sundance, which I was. Curiously, Jill thought he had small feet. That was her biggest recollection.
They say Rudolph Valentino had small feet also.
Tell me where they are.
Douglas Fairbanks, perhaps.
Yeah, sure.
Small feet bound in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I thought he was
So this was fun shooting the Feds in the House, which I think I had ripped off from a Saturday Night Live sketch, but most people thought it was reasonably original. People who watch independent films, fortunately, don't watch a lot of late-night network TV, so that helped out. Filming in Carhenge, now that we're there, this was very strange, because Carhenge, for those who don't know, which is probably most of you, was built by a guy who had inherited this farmland, but he was actually an engineer living in Texas or something. So he thought he would do something different with the land, and he found all these American cars and stuck them up in the shape of Carhenge. And since then, there was great debate in the town of Alliance, Nebraska, about whether it was a junkyard or art. And eventually, they realized, this could actually be a major tourist attraction. So the city finally kind of rallied behind them, and there was this support group called Friends of Carhenge that kind of manages the site. And that's who we were dealing with. And they had their members put us up in their houses while we were shooting the film, and made us sort of a dinner, a community dinner, where they all baked, desserts with a lot of Jell-O and marshmallows. And one night they made us sit down for a lecture on the history and lore of Carhenge while we were all shooting, completely exhausted. It was very surreal. But it was great being in this town of Alliance, because one night we were at a bar, fortunately, Dana is an ace pool player, actually made his way through college that way, and we were taking on the locals, and they said, you should shoot this cattle drive we're having tomorrow. I said, cattle drive? Yeah, it's going to go cross the highway just outside of town. We're like, we can't pass up a cattle drive. And they said, it's starting at so-and-so's ranch at 6:47, cattle go 3 miles per hour, it'll be across the street at 9 p.m., And sure enough, we go out there with the cameras, and the cattle were there right on time. We didn't even know there'd be cowboys there. Right before shooting the film, I'd driven out to Carhenge and kind of scoped it out. And what was really interesting to me was that a lot of the parts of the car still worked. The wheels turned, the gears turned. And So it was really sort of going back to using the location, because when I first written this scene, I didn't quite know how it would play out. But then once I got out there, I said, oh, well, let's use his, the phobia of cars and make it, have him use the machinery of the cars and I could see that we could, physically do that here.
Don't be afraid.
The shot where she's about to, well, you'll see in a minute, Jill kicks the boot at, this is actually actor Chris Dukes, who was a stand-in for 2 years on the West Wing, I should say, where she kicks the boot at his head. We had to shoot that in countless times. We tried it with the camera sideways, with him upside down, and to get the boot perfectly to land on his head. And in the end, I just sat there, take after take, throwing the boot at his head. And that was the only way to make it work. And mind you, it's a good way to keep actors in line, too. I had one film professor say that, well, he was a cinematographer, he said, actors are props that move, which is, you could also say actors are props with attitude. But actually, all these actors were terrific to work with. Except one guy who got a little drunk in the morning. But, we weren't paying them, so what do you expect?
How many takes did it take finally to get that shot?
To get the head shot was, I don't know, 15, 20 takes. Most of the film was done in first takes. We had very few second takes, almost never for performance reasons, because it was just, we had to just go so fast, and, I just had to put my trust in the DP and the first camera assistant. The irony or interesting thing, I think, is that if I was making the film now, or if any other independent filmmaker were making a film today, you would, and you had $38,000 to start a film, you would never dream of shooting it in 35. You'd shoot it on DV. And if you did shoot it in DV, or if I shot this film in DV, it would look completely different. The look of the film, the feel of the film, the pace of the film would be very different. There's something about shooting in 35 millimeter, which you can see the shadow of the camera in some of these shots, is that it is a big, heavy camera. There are certain moves that it does, and there are certain moves it does not do. So even if you're handheld, it doesn't actually move very much. And that's why shooting in 35 feels like a Hollywood movie, whether you wanted to or not. And originally we were going to shoot the whole thing on Super 8 and 16 millimeter. That was kind of my original idea. And the only reason we shot on 35 is because we thought the Panavision was going to give us this 35 camera, and they did in the end. And then we found we were able to get short ends, which, for those who don't know, is kind of essentially leftover film from other productions that were on 35, which brought the cost way down. And so we did wind up shooting it on 35. It's tough using short ends. Some of these scenes, it's only about 100, 120 feet of film, and so, which essentially means you say roll camera, action, and then you hear roll out. And so the actors have about 2 seconds to say their lines, which is why those family scenes are cut very quickly, because we shot those at the end of the production and had the shortest amount of footage in any given take. So it was somewhat intentional stylistically that those would be short scenes, but it was also necessitated by the length of the film.
Irony of ironies, you ended with the beginning. That's the beginning scene was one of the last ones you shot.
Yeah, which, in a lot of movies is the case. But actually, it was, getting the tire to land on his head took a few tricks too. The very end scene, which we're about to hit, which we shot the first week of production, and then reshot the last week of production for technical reasons. It turned out to be very good that we did shoot it at the end, because I really hadn't worked out the ending in the script. And on like our second day at Carhenge, I said to Houston and to Jill and to Mario West, who was our second AD, I said, guys, go sit in a corner, because we have to shoot some other stuff, for in a couple hours, and rework the scene. Just write it. I trusted them, and they did, and we came up with this ending. And what was great was doing the ending first. We knew where we knew where the film had to go. We knew sort of what we had to set up to get these payoffs, to, particularly in Simon's character. and that was so there was a real advantage to shooting the end first, because I'm convinced, frankly, that when most people see a movie, they remember the last 10 minutes, they may remember the first 5 minutes, and they'll maybe remember a big scene in the middle. And the rest of it is pretty immaterial. It just has to get you from A to B. So you've got to end strong and big, and and as long as people aren't bored on the way there, you're okay. A lot of people say Jill looks a lot like has this sort of Wizard of Oz thing going on here, but it was kind of unintentional, and then when she comes up with the "There's no place like home" line, it all kind of came together, and we all realized, oh wow, she's kind of dressed a little like that.
I'm guessing you kind of had to shoot around Simon's hair length as well.
No, the long hair was a wig.
Oh.
Now, we had lots of wig issues, and in fact, that scene, the very first day of shooting was that scene with him and Lars, and it rained our very first day, which was a little disappointing, and the wig got damp, and you can see it in a couple of those shots that it doesn't look very good. We had to completely rework the wig, which turned into a whole weave thing. It was really painful for him, but that's how we did the hair.
And this is the natural hair.
This is the natural hair. So most of the film is in this hair. The hair was a very big issue. See, they're both wearing red, team colors.
So he'd like us to believe this is natural hair.
Yeah. This is actually Jill's idea to do this whip pan to the Stonehenge sign, which I thought was kind of stupid, but I said, all right, we'll shoot it. And then, in editing, we said, oh, yeah. Larry said, hey, that works. Larry, by the way, is also a writing partner of mine, the editor, and we're working on a real estate musical called Open House, which everyone should stand by, and you can listen to some of the songs on our website.
And that'll be the next project. And was there also...
Well, we'll see. Well, Stamp and Deliver may still happen.
Was there also something about love and steak? Or...
Yeah, at one point I was going to do, excuse me, a Nebraska trilogy with Omaha the movie, Stamp and Deliver, and then a film called Make Love Not Steak.
Make Love Not Steak.
Make Love Not Steak, a sort of a vegetarian bestiality comedy. And then I realized no one in Nebraska would let me shoot that. And as it turned out, nobody ever has let me shoot that. So that kind of went by the wayside.
It could be the second part of a trilogy or thing.
Yeah. We got a crane from the rural power district out here in Alliance, Nebraska, and the only way we got this crane, it was a beautiful, huge crane from the power company. How much does it cost to rent it? Rent it? You don't rent it. You give me a 6-pack, and I come out. And so we had a drunk crane operator, but it was great because it was huge. It was bigger than any Hollywood thing, certainly cheaper. So. Those are the tricks to making these kinds of films, and there's the big Hollywood ending with the kiss, and of course you got the end. Where the hell did that guy come from? But that was the idea with these subtitles was, well, if you're going to limit yourself for budget reasons, make the most of it creatively. And that's the trick, really, with these with any low budget film is. Make the most of what you've got and make it work with the story that you have, and don't let it fight against your story. Also, the reason these end credits are so long is movie and the beginning credits. The movie itself, when we got done with it, because we tried to be aggressive in editing. It was pretty short. It was like 70 minutes or so, or no, it was 75. So we thought, well, we really need to thank a lot of people, which we did, contractually a lot of them, because all these people did everything for free. So that's why the credits are particularly long. But also, it makes it a full-length feature that way.
Did you ever contemplate handwriting the credits?
No, we did. No, that would be crazy. Now, we did misspell many of the credits, including my lead actor, poor Houston. I got no degree for that. That's part of the fun of credits is misspelling people's names. 'Cause there's so many of them.
Is the Feds song available on the soundtrack anywhere?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you can buy a soundtrack of the film now that I have the capacity to burn CDs, I should be able to sell them off of the website, which doesn't have all the songs, but it has quite a lot. The music was a lot of fun to work with. Most of the bands involved, including one of the composers, were Omaha based, a real collection of signed and unsigned music.
And here is some of the...
and here, in fact, is some of the music.
And some of them have gone on to some pretty big things.
Yeah, 311. They at one point those guys wanted to score the whole film, and which would have been fun. I would have had a great contact high off of it.
And now they don't return your calls.
No, they actually, some Slamdance filmmaker a couple years ago had worked with them, and they said, "Oh, you know that Omaha movie? Yeah, we did some stuff on it." So, that's good. And Two Skinny Jays is actually another band that enjoyed some success. A lot of the actors have stayed in Omaha, except for the governor, who went on to become a senator. And there you go. And then I tried to incorporate these, Super 8-bits, which were, kind of these sections I sort of shot while we were out in western Nebraska, kind of while it was too dark to shoot the, regular 35 millimeter. We would just stop on the side of the road. And when we were shooting, I didn't quite know how we would use it, and it was nice. It did work out a little bit. I think, I don't know. I mean, there was the guy at the premiere. Technically, that we premiered at the Mill Valley Film Festival, and my very first question at my very first screening was, "Dude, what's with all the fuzzy stuff?" And I had to explain that was Super 8, which the kind of the digital or the bending effect, the kind of warped effect. A lot of people say, "Oh, is that some cool digital thing?" It's like, no, we shot it on Super 8, projected it on my apartment wall at an angle, and then reshot it with 35 millimeter off the wall at an opposing angle. And that's how you get that effect. Patrolman in the middle of the road. That was some guy who was hired by the rancher to stop traffic, and he was in the middle of the road, so we never got his name. You had to give him some sort of credit.
That was him.
That was him. He played himself.
And the difference, obviously, between Super 8 and 35, the grain in Super 8 is when you blow it up.
Yeah, it's much grainier.
Much grainier, and the quality is 35.
Yeah.
Now, of course, on DVD, the quality of the DVD is obviously better than that of the video and any other release we've seen up until now.
Yeah, something like that.
I
Sure.
noticed you just dedicated the whole film to Ruby Kahn.
Ruby Kahn was my grandmother. She died right before we made the film. But, she's actually the one. She's from South Africa, and she was the one who told me to go on this Cape to Cairo trip, which is when I smuggled the emeralds. So that was inspiration. Yeah, look at all those people who gave us stuff. It's a lot of restaurants, stores, free food along the way. It's a lot of work to get that much free food, and now there's so much independent film. I think it's a lot harder to get this sort of support from no matter where you are. But at the time, it was still kind of new. There's more.
Anybody who's still listening to this is either
You're a real trooper. We really
either
appreciate
fallen
that.
asleep or has nothing better to do with their time. So I'd like to thank you for listening. Because I don't even think in the movie theater people sit through the crowds usually. And
No,
on
although
DVD,
I wanted to make sure to give people a prize for sitting through the end of the film.
Here we
And
go.
this is the reprise of the governor or the mayor coming up. And if you made it this far, and I remember actually going to some screenings when I was self-distributing the film, and actually forcing the door closed, and said, "You have to stay to the end." And people usually, if they made it that far, they get a treat. There we go. I learned one valuable lesson: never put the date of your film, the year of the film, in your end credits, because then it immediately gets old.
do it in Roman numerals because nobody can figure it out.
I think that's why. I think that this one. Okay, so here comes the mayor. And this, by the way, is exactly what happened. At the end of our shoot with him, he got on his motorcycle. He didn't start very well, and we just kept rolling. And he, rode away in the alley, and there's a little bit of audio trickery, but he didn't actually get hit by a car. And he actually came back and down the alley and said, "Oh, the bike didn't start that well. Was that okay for you guys?" And we're like, "Yeah, that was perfect." So anyway, thanks guys for sticking with me, and thanks for all of you for watching.
Enjoy the DVD. One more time, the web address.
Done. Probably. If you are still listening, it's www.slimedance.com. Thank you.
/Marvish.